Welcome to the Chicago Bears Podcast, a presentation of ESPN Chicago, Chicago's home for sports. Here's your host, Pat, the designer.
Bear down, Bears fans. Welcome into another episode of the Chicago Bears Podcast, the Friday edition. We got Chris Bleck and Adam Abdalla in the building from Bleck and Abdalla, fresh off of the show. Boys, what's going on?
Pat, what's up, man?
I'm
a
very
Friday.
loud,
We're talking Bears football. I'm ready to go. Let's do this.
Excited to be here. Let's talk some Bears.
Welcome to the pod, dog. I mean, listen, we got a lot to get into here. We got Ryan Poles talking about, he believes that the Bears should be contending for the NFC North title this season. We'll talk about that, his thoughts with the Athletic. Arlington Heights pushback. Arlington Heights is not happy that the Bears are trying to break ground. Get into that a little bit. I love that Bleck smiles immediately on that one. And then hottest takes that we've heard, coldest takes that we've heard, all that more. Quick hit on the Chicago Bears Podcast. No quarters into this, just straight conversation. Let's get into the show, boys, because everybody in Chicago is looking around at the Bears and saying 7 wins, 6 wins maybe. They still suck. I'm hoping for the best. Ryan Poles says that we should be contending for an NFC North title this season. Now, SI basically does have us contending. They have the Vikings at 9.5 wins. I believe they have Detroit at 9 wins even, and the Bears at 7. So technically, you would be contending. But do you agree with the thought process of Ryan Poles here? And do you like the fact that at a minimum, he has this belief in his team already?
I like it. I agree with him. They should contend for the division at least, and they should be in contention to make the playoffs this season. Pat, when you make the moves that Poles has made in this offseason, he basically addressed every single level of the entire football team on both sides of the ball, offensive line, defensive line. Now, you could be a detractor and say he didn't get an edge rusher. He did a lot of work in the draft, though, up the middle, which will help the defensive line. They address linebacker. They address the secondary. You go to the offense, you get a wide receiver, number 1 wide receiver. They get a new running back to add to the mix in the draft. They've addressed every level of both sides of the football. This team is not a playoff team heading into the season. They should compete to get to the playoffs this year. That's what I think we should be looking at in this upcoming year.
Yeah, I want to see them in the hunt. In that graphic, Sunday Night Football, Steve Kornacki with the khakis on, up against doing all the motioning, and he's moving teams in and out and the percentages and stuff. That's what I want. And we all saw from the Vikings that 13 wins means nothing when they got to the playoffs. So I think they come down a little bit. I think this is a division where 10 wins this division. And so if you're talking about the Vikings or the Lions being around 9 or 10 wins, I think the Bears are going to win 8 or 9 games. So, it could come down to the last weekend, but I think they can win 8 games. And if you win 8 games, and I believe the division is won with 10 or 9 games, then absolutely they're competing for a division title.
Well, guys, also look at it this way, right, Pat? You said that, there are some people in town who think that they're still not good enough. 6, 7 wins.
6, 7 wins.
I mean, let's just base it off of what Vegas is telling us. The win total right now is at 7.5, right? So 1 or 2 things go your way. Now you're talking about a team that's fighting 500 throughout the season, right? So that's not a loser.
Right.
And most of the NFL is in that range. It's around 500. If things break your way, you're a playoff team.
Right.
And there's always, 3 or 4 teams per conference that are like legitimate title contenders. But everyone else is in the middle except for the very worst of the league. And this is not a team that's going to be a 3 or 4 win team again. And so that's why I think Abdalla and I are on the show. We've been kind of painted in some situations as like we're a little too positive over this. But I think the approach that we're taking is that it's more of a logical look at the rest of the National Football League. Most weeks, when you see the matchups, everyone's about even. There's a couple of game breakers that kind of tilt the projections of each contest. We're looking at Kansas City. We're looking at Buffalo with Josh Allen, Cincinnati with Burrow. But outside of that, most rosters in the NFL are about even. They're average, right? And it's what you do with that. And I think what Poles has done in this offseason is he's gotten us back to like level.
Yeah.
Right. Like I don't think this is a title contender, and I would be totally surprised if they went 6-0 in the division and then like walked away with the division title and into the playoffs. Like if we're sitting here in December having this conversation and the Bears are first in the NFC North and they haven't lost in the division, I would be surprised by that. I don't think they're that good, but I do think they should be in the mix. And I think that's kind of what Ryan Poles is pointing to, is that they should be in the mix, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, to me, right, I think that what I read this as is you should be able to beat the guys in your division at a minimum, right? And we should be able to win games versus the NFC North. And I kind of agree with that, right? Like, to me, I don't know if I have the Packers guaranteed as 2 wins this season, but I feel like the Bears are at least a better team than the Packers are right now because they've had so much change. When I look at the Vikings, I agree with you. I think the Vikings are going to take a massive step back. I think that you could see the Vikings drop down to an 8 or 9 win team just based on a lot of the turmoil that went on going into the end of the season, how many 1-win games. And now, guess what? You're not playing up against kind of the mid-level teams anymore. You got the best of the best coming out here versus the Vikings. I think they're going to take a step back. I think depending on how our schedule, right, what happens in the game before coming into the next game, we could have a favorable matchup with the Vikings at times. And the Lions, I mean, like, the NFL has said that the Lions are the darlings of the NFL, that they're going to come out and they're going to be this dominant team. You guys show me. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions finish with 9 wins.
Well, but also, too, you have to remember, that's only 6 games.
Yeah.
You play the Bucks, you play the Panthers, you play the Cardinals. Like, you play who knows what the Broncos are going to be like. Like, there's opportunity. I think that they should at least split with every team in the division. Like,
Agreed.
if you split with every team in the division and, like, let's say you find a way to sweep the Packers, like that, you should at least be expecting now splitting with winning your home games against the Vikings and the Lions. And then you've got an easier schedule now because of where you finished last year, where you're playing teams like the Panthers and the Cardinals at the end of the year. You're playing the Bucks in week 2 where, okay, is it going to be hot in Tampa? Sure, but it's still hot up here. So I don't think that that's that big of a deal. You know, you're playing easier teams. I think the way the schedule shakes out, I would be surprised. Like, if they only win 6 games, to me, that's not good enough. And now we're used to have to start questioning, okay, well, is Ryan Poles not necessarily the right guy, but like, is he drafting the right way? Is Justin Fields the right guy? Like, you start having more questions about this franchise if they only have 6 wins. Like, to me, the bare minimum is 6 wins.
Well, you're questioning, not only are you questioning the GM, you're questioning the quarterback.
Absolutely.
Because if you're only getting to 6, I think we assume that maybe the step that we're hoping to see doesn't really stick with Justin Fields and his development. And then I think you're definitely questioning the coach. You know, the Bears were the only team in the hiring cycle when they hired Matt Eberflus to go defensive. Everyone else took an offensive-minded coach who then tried to revamp their entire offense. You know, you could look at the Giants with Daboll. You could look at other places. The Bears went oppo to that, like, mindset. And so I think what would happen, especially with the fan base, is if, say, Justin's not getting it, the offense isn't scoring like it kind of did at points last season.
We were scoring 30 points a lot.
which was positive. But the defense, if the defense doesn't improve, Eberflus is going to be the one that fans are going to blame. And so I think that's also where the whole conversation is. The reason we're looking at 7, 8, and 9 wins, I think 9 is probably high, but like that 7 to 8 range, it would allow the Bears to improve, but they may miss the playoffs, right? Like, if you win 8 games, you go 8 and 9, there is a chance you miss the playoffs, but it could still be a positive step in the right direction for the team.
No, 100%. I think that the like what you said, if they sweep the Packers and split the other, that's 4-2. You went 4-2 in your division.
Right. So
that's
now,
a huge step. Now, can you find 4 more wins?
Right, exactly. And like what Adam was saying is that you look at those other teams who are projected to be worse rosters or not in the Bears situation of kind of like the upward trajectory, because like Tampa theoretically is like a rebuilding team hoping to tank out so then they can get Caleb Williams or someone next year, right? So like, that's a team. Can you find those 3 wins that get you to that 7 number? And at that point, it's like, okay, let's see what this team can do and see how good the quarterback is.
Well, and speaking of that, you know, like with Tampa and with Carolina and with, because we don't know what Bryce Young is going to be. We don't know what Jordan Love is going to be. Do
we know that he's starting? Do we know that Bryce is starting season?
By the time they get to them, he probably will be starting. And if they were smart, they wouldn't do the same thing the Bears did and start Andy Dalton instead of Justin Fields. Just let Bryce Young go out there and figure it out. But there are multiple games, 10 to 11 games, where when you're at home also for like the Lions and the Vikings, where if Justin Fields has the ball at the end, he's the best player on the field. He's the best quarterback on the field.
Yes.
There are so many games. There's at least 10 games where Justin Fields is the better quarterback, where at least that's what we hope he can be. Where even as a runner and a passer,
the better talent right now, maybe. I don't know if we can say better passer, but the better talent as a whole.
Baker Mayfield for the Bucs,
he should be better.
Like all these, like, I mean, you
that
could
game
argue.
Only scares me because of the defensive line, though.
But you can argue like Derek Carr. You can make the arguments for Kirk Cousins and like that kind of thing. That's why, home and away, like kind of those things. Is Kyler Murray going to be playing in that last, second to last game against the Cardinals? Like there are question marks. Like obviously the games against the Chiefs, it's not going to matter because the Chiefs are probably going to win that game. But there are multiple games where if Justin Fields is the guy that we think he can be and that the Bears hope he can be, he's going to be the better player at quarterback. And when it comes to crunch time towards the end of the game and he's got the ball, we saw it last year. Yeah. They had the ball. They were driving in multiple games. Yes. And it was things that he wasn't controlling were the reasons that they lost games. Velus Jones muffs a couple punts. Darnell Mooney can't get a butt cheek down in the end zone, so they lose that game. There's a ball literally.
I'm still annoyed at that.
I'm so mad.
There's a ball. Smith Marset has a ball ripped out of his hands, and so they can't win that game.
Right there.
It's
right there.
Exactly.
It's right there.
So
it's right there.
If those games now go in the favor of the Bears because of the better talent, and that better talent trickles down to everyone else, you can say that they'll put them in a position to win more games.
So to go to retort your point, though, the Bears got to keep Fields healthy.
Yes.
Right? Like, because what we saw last year against the Jets is that if the Bears entered a game without Justin Fields, that's a automatic game starts, you lost.
Oh, yeah.
Like they had no chance against the Jets last year, which
Walker?
I think is, I just think it's funny for people who are still crapping on Justin Fields and his development. It's like, do you not realize that he was the reason they were kept in games last year, and that hopefully you surround him with some more talent and they can actually win the games? But like, go back to the games that he hasn't played. You're dead in the water. Like there's no chance. So like, that's why keeping him healthy throughout the season, like you said, like when they get to that point, will Kyler Murray be there? Well, it's just as important for the Bears in their future that our guy is healthy and available.
100%. Let us know how you guys feel in the comments below. Love the great debate. Make sure y'all drop in them comments, man. Hit that like button. At least drop a bird down and let us know that you are here. Keep this thing pushing along because speaking of pushing, Arlington Heights is pushing back a little bit. Not thrilled that the Bears are coming. What's going on? What's up with Arlington?
Thrilled that the Bears are coming. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. It's all politics. I don't believe. Really? You don't want a bunch of people coming to your town and eating at your restaurants and staying at your hotels? You don't want that? You really don't?
I think business might be excited. I think the people whose houses are there that are like, there's going to be 1 million people in my city.
Okay.
Friday through Sunday every week.
Okay.
Well,
probably aren't that thrilled.
Yeah, I mean, I think for game day, it'll certainly be, I don't live in Arlington Heights. I have some friends who live out there, but like, I think game day obviously will be more crowded, but like, let's be real. If someone's flying into the area to attend a Bears game, they're going to spend 90% of the weekend in downtown Chicago at the hotels, the restaurants, be in the city. And then you're going to take that Uber ride out to Arlington Heights. You're going to get on the Metro. You're going to do whatever to get to the stadium and back. So like, Abdalla's right. This is politics. They want, a little on their side, and they'll concede at some point. I can't wait. I think it'll be outstanding when the Bears finally build a new stadium.
Well, your family's been a season ticket holder for a long time with this thing, right? How long you guys have had it?
My grandfather originally got season tickets at Wrigley. I believe it was like the final 2 years at Wrigley, and then he moved to Soldier when the Bears moved to Soldier Field. So what's that? Like that puts us at like 1971, I think. And we've had tickets in the family ever since then. So I've been going to games The earliest back that I can remember was about 7 years old. So back then, the kids get the crappiest games. So I always got to go to the Lions games, which was cool because, like, as a
the Bears
kid,
would actually win.
well, and they would win, and Waddle would have a great game.
Yeah.
And but I remember the Lions had cool helmets, and I liked the colors too. So
Yeah.
I was like, that's cool. Yeah, no problem. But yeah, so I've been going to games since I was about 7. So that puts us around like 92 is when I started going to games, and then when I got into like later grade school into high school, like I've been going to every single game since then with my dad and my family. So it's a big deal. I somehow married someone who also has had season tickets in her family for over 40 plus years.
Was that the criteria though?
It wasn't.
Did
but
you come into the marriage like, so what are the perks that come along with this outside of the perks?
I'll say
come
this.
Along with this?
It was not initially a part of the discussions, but it makes things a lot easier in the fall when we all know we're going to be at the same place, right? So so her family has had season tickets for over 40 years. It's a great time. Abdalla gets to go a lot.
I do. I appreciate it.
You take advantage of that?
I do. Well, listen, I've never
Do you
asked,
sit with the wife, or
I've
do
never.
you sit
No,
with
I
his
sit with
seats?
I sit with Chris and his dad and whoever
He sits in the elements with the Blacks.
Yeah, I sit in the
south end
elements,
zone.
and I'm very appreciative
Yes.
of it, and I love the tailgates and all that kind of stuff, and it's a great time. And I'm very fortunate to have a friend who has season tickets who asked me to go to a lot of games, and I think I've only said no like one time I was out of town, and then it was the Patriots game that was like a blizzard.
Yeah.
And I was just, they're like, do you want to go? And I was like, I'm gonna sit this one.
Well, listen,
at
Pat,
home.
it's a great thing to have, and I can't wait for the team to be more competitive in the future. It'll be amazing. We always joke that, like, when the Bears are good, it's amazing how many friends we have.
Yeah.
But when they're like a 3-win team and like,
but they weren't bad that year. It was just the weather sucked.
Well, you know how you get those seasons where it's like 3 or 4 wins and the coach is fired in November.
Yeah.
But you're just kind of playing
like
out
the end of last season.
Yeah, you'll be amazed how little friends you have when
Yeah.
you're searching for people to go to those December games when they're definitely not playing for anything.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, all right, I guess we're going by ourselves this week.
Man,
We'll
you
just head
got
down
to
there.
hit them with that. If you can't support me at my worst, then you can't have me at my best.
Yeah.
To the best.
You weren't there when we had 3 wins.
You wasn't with me
Playoffs?
shooting in the gym.
Exactly.
You wasn't with me shooting in
I
the
don't
gym.
I don't have tickets when the playoffs roll around. I'm sorry.
Yeah. What are you
Won't
talking about? What are you talking about? But no, I've been to all the cold games with him. I've been to all the night games,
Yeah.
like all that stuff. Like I remember going
Coldest game.
the Falcons game by far.
Yeah, Rex
Falcons
Grossman
game.
comes in at halftime. He hits Musa Muhammad over the middle, and we were rolling.
Yeah.
We were rolling. Urlacher was all over Michael Vick that night.
Vix didn't want. He took himself out of the game.
Wanted
He was like,
nothing
I'm
to
done.
do
When he had Dakota.
Yeah, he's like, I'm
wanted
done.
nothing to do with it.
Hands down. We
It was
had
a great night.
a guy that went with us at like halfway through the first quarter was like, can't do this.
Yeah, he just got up and left.
And just left in the midway through the first quarter.
That's the best part
But
about
like
construction. I have all the perfect gear. For
Oh
Bears
yeah,
games.
you.
Yeah,
Like,
right, yeah,
I have
you
a
do.
drawer at
Yeah.
home that is just Bears cold weather
Yeah.
gear. Like it's coming up on 10 years because it was a few weeks after I got married. The monsoon game where we had to evacuate against the Ravens.
Yep.
That was another game where like
There were
you're just-
tornado warnings. in
Yeah,
the
and we
area.
all had to sit in the concourse for like an hour while
Yeah.
it just torrential downpour. Like it was crazy.
It's always funny, right? Like everybody's like, you get dressed up and you're trying to look your best to go to the game and have a great time. And like when it's Bears in the winter,
No.
I'm like, listen, I got bibs on, I got Under Armour on.
Oh yeah.
I got the Carhartt jacket
Oh,
on. It's
yeah.
like, I don't care what I look like. I care less.
I'm going to CVS and buying all those little hand warmer
Yeah, the
packets.
hand warmer.
You dress for survival.
Which
at
is
that
the
point.
toughest
Yeah.
moment of your day when you got to look your friend in the eye with the hand warmers. And warm
Oh,
them up.
yeah.
That's a tough
Oh,
moment.
listen,
It's a tough
I don't care. Listen, you're there for survival. I don't care what I look like.
Yeah.
I've got the big hood on. I've got everything. Like, it does not matter what I look like for this game. But that being said, it will be so much better to walk into the stadium and be able to take your jacket off.
Oh my
Yeah, I
God,
mean,
in the middle of
that's
December.
going to be so great.
That's the thing is Soldier Field. I've had so many memories there and so many fun games, a lot of losing, unfortunately. And all you Bears fans know, like this, we want this team to be successful for like decades, not just looking back at 85 and being like, how great was that?
I'll
Or
take
like
a
that-
decade. Like,
that
just
nice-
give me a decade.
The nice little run in 2001, right? Like where you had a sneaky 3-13 team with Dick Duran as the coach, and you had, wasn't that Anthony Thomas's rookie year and Urlacher's rookie year? And it was like, oh, we didn't expect that. Like that was fun. But Soldier Field, it's not an enjoyable place to see a game. It makes going to a game difficult. The tailgating's great. The fans are great. Location stinks. If you're driving to the game or taking the CTA, it is not convenient whatsoever. And the amenities aren't that great. So to me, a brand new stadium that's state of the art, that's on par with the rest of the National Football League, I think is pretty cool. And I'm all for it. I know that there will probably be a piece of me that misses the lakefront and misses, gearing up and walking the March of the Penguins to get out to Soldier Field, on those cold December and January days. But I would much more prefer this idea, like Adam was pointing to, where you drive to the United Center in the winter to see the Bulls. You get to your seat, take your jacket off, you enjoy the day, and you enjoy the night. And I think a new stadium is definitely needed, and I can't wait.
To me, that's just that's the memories that we'll tell our grandchildren when it's like, you don't even remember what it's like. You have it so easy.
It's like, but for anyone who has a problem with it, it's like the Bears originally played at Wrigley Field. So like, if you're really outraged, you want them they played in a baseball stadium to start here in the city. So
if fair weather was actually a thing. Like if hot weather teams hadn't come here and beat us in the cold.
I mean, I will say,
and that's the thing is like that myth was immediately dispelled in the late 80s when the 49ers came to town in the middle of the winter against our championship core and beat them handily.
Well, we did just talk about how the Falcons quit in a game. And I would imagine that it affects the Cardinals game at the end of the season, towards the end of the season this year.
I think it's every now and then.
Yes,
right?
it is.
But like we can pick, the Rams game.
Absolutely,
the cold,
it is.
Absolutely.
But you mentioned earlier that Patriots game when it snowed. Didn't the Bears weren't they down by 30 points at halftime?
That was a bad game.
Well, it gets cold in New York too.
But okay, so like warm weather
it's more
teams.
just against warm weather teams.
But I'll say this: my in-laws have Colts season tickets, and so I've been to a couple games at Lucas Oil, and it's amazing. The whole thing is parking lots everywhere. Every part of that stadium is an entrance. There's not two entrances to the stadium, so you can walk in every single door. You can get out every single door. It's right by the highway. Like I went to the national championship game, Alabama Georgia, a couple of years ago. As soon as I knew Alabama was going to lose when Bryce Young threw that interception, I got in my car. I was on the highway by the time they were doing the trophy presentation. Like it is right there. So if the Bears can build something like that, where like the infrastructure's there, where you can get in and get out right off the highway, get on the highway, get off the highway, be right there next to it. So there's parking lots everywhere. Everywhere is an entrance. So there's not these long lines. I mean, you have to walk in when we go to games. We start walking in around 11 o'clock and end the tailgate around 11 o'clock just to get in and stand in line.
You basically, if you're looking to get in the stadium before noon, before kick, you have to be in line outside of the south end zone. I know the north end zone gets bottlenecked as well.
Yeah.
You have to be standing in line by at least 11:15, 11:20. So then you can get in, go get a beer, and then get to your seat.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, I think that's also where, I think we're different. Like, I want to see the game.
Oh my God.
I'm not there just to say I went, right?
Yeah.
So, I hate going to a game and getting to my seat with 7 minutes left in the first quarter.
It's the worst.
I hate that.
It
so
irritates me so much.
I want to get in there, and it's just not convenient. And I think what also is exciting is now that Kevin Warren is running the organization, Abdalla and I got a chance to go to the Final Four in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
So we got to see their brand new stadium, and it's incredible in the middle of the downtown cityscape. And that Viking stadium is great. So if the Bears can get something built that is comparable to what the Vikings have, where there's this element of you're indoors, but you feel outdoor, right? So maybe
less dead birds.
Yeah,
cool.
perhaps.
Nice.
maybe the ceiling is like you could see through it or something, or like maybe there's some element where you can
Why
feel
is retractable such an issue?
Expensive.
Like,
well, I don't even think
$1 billion
it's
organization can't throw
expensive.
it.
but
I'm
I
just
don't-
saying it's
I don't
expensive.
Like I think there is, right, the point you brought up about the games that we kind of can pick out.
yeah.
There's certain times where I would screw a team over. Tampa does it. Miami's built their stadium that way.
Yeah.
There's certain times where the Rams are coming, and guess what? Oh, we got a
Well,
blizzard
okay,
coming.
But I don't
Okay,
want to. But I don't
let's-
want to go to the game knowing that it could be indoors, and then I get
Okay.
there and I'm like, "What is this? I got to wear a
But
jacket."
let's be
now?"
honest. Is on turf. He seems a bit faster. When Justin
Yeah,
Fields
absolutely.
is on turf, he seems to be moving a
Yeah.
little bit quicker. And I think that's where also like I think, yeah, you could screw the other team, but I think you put Justin Fields on an indoor track
That's true.
and like things may start to like even more be enhanced based on what we see his running ability. But like I don't feel a need to even incorporate the outdoor
Element.
atmosphere to the inside. Like I think it would be cool if they did something where like there was like an end of the stadium that was like you could see out. I think that would be a cool feature. But I think we're in good hands as Bears fans though, because Kevin Warren has been through this, and that's what makes me happy about this go around. Unlike what we saw, the revamped Soldier Field was like it was clearly a project that it was a group of people that didn't seem like they've ever like taken something like that on before. Yeah. And so they tried to make everyone happy when in reality, I don't think anyone was happy.
No,
it's
the only time in the NFL where they were like, let's make less money on ticket sales.
Yeah. Well, it's like, it's also a stadium that like basically after like 5 years, people were like, oh yeah, there's this stadium that's better. This one that's new. This is better. And like, you look at
the standard.
You look at SoFi, and I don't think the Bears would be able to put something like SoFi together because what Stan Kroenke was able to do with his own money and the wealth that he has built for the Rams, like I would just like something like what the Colts have, what the Vikings have, even the Raiders, because the Raiders stadium, the Raiders stadium was like $2.5 billion less than the Rams stadium. So if the Bears can do that, I think that'd be great. It'd be great.
It's a real. Well, I mean,
it's just like a house, ain't it? Like it's like that's a smaller house, but he's got a pool.
Yeah,
he's got a pool.
It's a nicer stadium too. I've been to that stadium. I went a couple of years ago with Waddle and Sylvie. It's a really nice stadium, and they put on a show there in Vegas. It's fun.
Yeah, you gotta love Vegas, man. I'll be in Vegas in 2 weeks. Gotta love Vegas. I'll be in Vegas.
Stay hydrated.
All right,
very.
Stay hydrated. Exactly. Yeah.
I'll be drinking something. Hey, let's finish it out on this. We got the hottest, coldest, and the take that you believe. Let's run through this real quick. Bleck, hottest take that you've heard this offseason.
Okay, hottest take that I've heard, I think, is the whole conversation about Justin Fields being in the MVP conversation. That's just wild, off the hip, hot take nonsense. Like, because if you look at it logistically, or with like a logical look at next season, the only way Justin Fields is an MVP candidate is if the Bears go on a start where they're like 12-2. And at that point, they're fighting for the number 1 seed in the NFC against the Eagles or the 49ers. And the conversation is, can the Bears get to the Super Bowl?
Yes.
Like, think about the hype in this city, on this podcast, on ESPN 1000. If the Bears started off 12-2. And at that point, Justin Fields would be an MVP candidate, right?
Yeah.
But that's not going to happen. We would love to see it, but that's not going to be a situation. So like, I think
I didn't think 2018 was realistic either, though. So I guess I don't know much.
Yeah, but like,
I don't think it's realistic.
Yeah, but Trubisky wasn't a Super Bowl or an MVP.
But even
candidate.
on that run, he wasn't an MVP candidate.
No, he wasn't an MVP candidate.
He was a part of the run.
Yeah.
So for the Bears to get to that point and for Fields to be an MVP candidate, like, not only does Fields have to be a top 10 player in the league next year, the Bears as a team have to stack wins and be the team that every SportsCenter starts talking about, every talking head show, that the Bears have a chance to get to the playoffs and the Super Bowl. I don't think that's likely yet. Maybe next year, but not this upcoming football season.
What do you got? Hottest take?
The hottest take I've heard, and I hear it a lot from people. I hear this one, and because people actually believe this, and I just think it's flat out ridiculous. It's not, I don't think it's a hot take. I just think it's an absolutely ridiculous take.
Okay.
Is that the Bears defense is going to be god awful again because they don't have defensive ends. They actually do have defensive ends. There will be two guys lined up. There will be two guys lined up at defensive end. You can generate pressure up the middle. Ask Justin Fields if you can generate pressure up the middle.
Justin Jones is a defensive end.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
I'll let you know that.
Yeah, well, no, he's a defensive tackle. He's a defensive tackle. He's a defensive tackle. He's a defensive tackle. Chris.
Gotta get that right.
He's a defensive tackle.
We know. We've been told.
He's a defensive tackle.
I'm aware.
Okay. I think that to me, it's ridiculous that the amount of additions that the Bears made on defense and the fact that they still have, like, Eddie Jackson was playing really well last year before he got hurt. Yeah. You still have Jalen Johnson. He's not the best. He's good. He's decent. He could get a contract extension before the season starts. The Bears can generate pressure before or up the middle. You can. Like I said, ask Justin Fields. And when he's got 3 defensive linemen in his face a second and a half after the ball is snapped, you generate pressure up the middle. You can do it. It's on Matt Eberflus to find a way to do that. Whether he's, bringing in linebackers or safeties or whatever to blitzing and doing more of that stuff, whatever you want to do. But the fact that they didn't sign anybody or have yet to sign anybody doesn't mean that they're going to be the worst defense in the NFL. They upgraded the defense a ton. Their secondary is, I think, very good. I just don't see how people are like, well, they're going to be crap because they didn't add a defensive end. That's not true.
And it's also the fact that Brian Poles literally just said we're hoping to add one sooner than later, which doesn't mean we're not looking to add.
Well, but even if you add, I still think that even whoever is out there, I don't think is going to be good enough to be like, well, now they're a top 10 defense. Like they're not. It's not going to do. You're adding bodies. That's what you're doing.
Yannick Ngakoue, you're pretty good.
Okay,
well, and also I do think
I don't know if that's the guy, but if you get him, you're pretty.
Yeah,
good.
You're right on that. And I also think like the way you kind of paint the picture with you have the vets in the middle. And then you add all of the rookies, the 3 rookies you draft in the middle. So, like, you have a collection of guys who can put pressure up the middle, who theoretically, with the scheme and the linebackers, like, I agree with Abdalla. I don't think it's the end of the world that you didn't go out and sign someone. They probably will, but I think that is why it's like a ridiculous hot take.
I'm not worried about the edge. I'm worried about our 3 tech, the one of the 2 that we just drafted, just acclimating to the NFL quickly. That's the only thing I'm realistically worried about.
But that's why you have Jones in the middle to be there, and you have depth.
Is he a defensive tackle?
He's a defensive tackle.
But that's why he's there, right? To allow the rookies to kind of learn underneath his wings, right? And to hopefully push to become starters. Like, so that's why you don't have to really worry about them getting it from day one.
Right.
I think the goal would be like, hopefully they get by like November.
Right.
And in November, then it's like it's a rotation on who's getting playing time and who's actually making a difference in games.
Yeah.
Because I think that at that point, hopefully the Bears are winning more games and then we're having fun conversations, right?
Let's finish it out on this because we got to get up out of here. Quick episode today. The hot take you've heard that you actually believe.
That the Bears have a chance to win the division.
Shout out to Ryan Poles out here.
Yeah, the Bears have a chance to win the division.
Ryan
I think.
Poles
Well, not only that, but I believe Dan Graziano said it as well. On ESPN. Like, I think the Bears have a shot at being the last 2 games of the season need to matter.
Yes,
that's basically it. The last two games of the season need to matter.
Packers,
and if
Arizona.
That's the case, then the Bears have a chance at making maybe not winning the division, but being a playoff team.
Yeah,
like if you're a wild card team, fine. If you end up winning the division, even better. But that the last 2 weeks of the season don't need to be me finding other things to do or just watching Red Zone.
Oh, yeah.
I would say that the hot take that I believe, or I could believe, would be that the offensive line had to get better for Fields to get better. And what I mean by this is, like, heading into the draft, a lot of the conversation was offensive line or weapons or defense.
Or defensive line.
And Poles went offensive line.
Yeah.
I disagreed with it before the draft. I'm willing to acknowledge or give credit to it if that was correct.
Yeah.
So if that thought, because a lot of Bears fans called the station and gave that opinion, if that was right and like that's the key to unlocking Justin Fields, then I'm willing to say, okay, that was right. I was wrong. That take was right on.
The one I got is I think Brian Baldinger, that's how you say his name, said this on the Pat McAfee show. Darnell Wright is the prick that the Chicago Bears need on the offensive line to get everybody else in order.
I'm good with that.
I can see that.
I saw that and just kind of like looking at Darnell Wright's tape and how like he is a guy that like, you know how people talk about like he walks on the field and the switch flips.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like when you saw him like on the sidelines of games, is it like that's the stuff I look for. Like, is he being the goofy dude that's in the present? Like he looked, I was like, this dude looks terrifying. Like,
yeah,
he might kill his coach who's telling him he missed the tackle.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's the one for me where I'm like, okay, I'm kind of on board with that. I rock with that one.
I like that. I think there needs to be an element of nasty, right, from your offensive line.
I don't want good guys.
Yeah,
I like you want good guys, right?
Yeah,
but like I
yeah,
don't want you doing anything.
You want good people, but dudes who want to get after
Yes.
it when the games.
Yeah.
If there's a Ja Morant mindset, never mind. Let's get up out of here. Hey, follow us on everything at ESPN Chicago. You can follow me on everything at Pat the Designer. Drop the Twitters real quick so they can find out where to find you guys at, man.
At Chris Bleck.
At Adam A. Abdalla, cross-platform.
Make sure to tune in with them on that, man. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and showing love for another episode of the Chicago Bears podcast. Another great week. Make sure you guys are tuned in with us on the ESPN Chicago app 5 days a week. Y'all stay safe out there, Chicago. Bear down. Peace.